let's get started. So the first thing we're going to do, surprise, surprise, is cover a wire in floral tape. If you've never used floral tape before, it's a little bit weird because it doesn't stick, but that's okay because it sticks to itself and it sticks to paper. So what you do to activate the stickiness, which is very mildly sticky, is you stretch it. So it's a process of stretching it and wrapping it. And for this, I like 2 layers of floral tape. And I use white floral tape instead of green floral tape because I like to add the color of the stem a little bit later in the process. And I'm going to show you that towards the end of the video. So let's do 3 layers of floral tape on this one. All done. All you have to do is tear it and pinch it down so it sticks. Now we are going to take this little bead that comes in the kit. We're going to go ahead and pop that right on the top. Then we are going to take the floral tape and cover the top of that bead. So it covers the whole thing. It's also going to secure it in place right at the top. Push it up a little bit, get it right where I want it to be. And then we're just going to secure that with a little bit more floral tape. Just so it stays nice and secure, and then it's going to move around as we work on this flower. There we go. Now I'm going to take my petal paper, which has a little bit of a stamen paper, and that's what we're going to work on first. Right here. We're going to cut out this little blue square. It doesn't have to be perfectly cut out because much of it you won't see. We're going to take this, line up those 2 corners, and slide it right there, just to kind of help find the center, because you want that center. The paper has a little bit of a gradient, so if you can get it as close to the center as possible, that's going to be great. Then we're going to tuck in these 2 sides, fold that down, same thing on the other side, fold in those 2 sides, fold it down, and press everything down so it's nice and smooth. It's still going to be a little wrinkly, but smooth as you can get it. That looks nice. So I'm going to secure that with a little bit of floral tape. Smooth down the sides a little bit better. And that is going to be the stamen, but it's missing its little disc right at the top, which we're going to add now. This also comes with a kit. So we're just going to start with 1. And we're going to cut out that. So this doesn't have to be like perfectly round, but as perfect as you can get it is good. I'm a big fan of moving the paper instead of moving the scissors. I think it comes out a lot better that way. There we go. That's all cut out now. Now we're just going to take just the smallest little dot of glue, put it right there, right in the middle, and pop that right on top. And you're going to want to hold it for a few seconds. I'm going to skip that part. I already have one all ready, but if you are making this at home, you're going to want to hold it down for a few minutes because the paper that I make the top part out of tends to want to curl a lot when it gets wet. And then after you've held it down for a few minutes, just let it dry for maybe an hour, probably less. You could probably get away with, but I have one already made and dried, so I'm going to work with this one and set that other one aside to dry. So the next step is to cut out the petals, the fun part, right? So I'm just going to select one of these. And we're going to cut it out. It takes a little while, but I'm not going to make you watch me cut out all 5, just this first one. So this bottom line right here, you can kind of ignore it if you want to, like this horizontal line right there. It's more just a suggestion. And really, all of my kits are meant to not be cut out like exactly on the line. It's more of a suggestion. You're going to get a much more organic feeling, and you're going to be a lot less stressed out making these flowers if you just kind of use it as a suggestion as opposed to the hard and fast rule. So you don't have to cut out right on the line. I don't. They come out really, really good if you kind of just use your intuition, go with your gut. Cut where you'd like it. Like I said before, I think it comes out way better if you move the paper and not the scissors. You have much more control over where your cut's going to be, and it comes out really nice and clean. And this is the line I was telling you can ignore. If you have big hands like I have, you might want a little bit more, more to hold on to. So I'm just going to cut it right there. Give me a little bit more area to cut onto. And as you can see, these petals are printed on the front and on the back. The back is a little bit faded, but that's because the inspiration picture that I used to develop these flowers, that's how they were, but I wasn't really happy with how it looked without anything printed on the back. So now we're going to show how to fold this petal. So what you're going to do is make a soft cup by holding it right there like that. Sorry, I hold my things weird. Just like that. Then we're going to nestle the thumb right up in there. And that kind of creates this little tent. And you're just going to push down on that tent. And then hold it from there and fold this down like that. And give it a couple of pinches from a few different directions. And that is how you fold this petal. Now we're going to go in and give it a little bit of crimping around the sides. So as you can see, I'm just kind of crimping it, but I'm not like holding it really tightly. You just want to give it a little bit of dimension. Give it that nice poppy petal feeling. And that's it. Pretty little petal. So I have already gone ahead and made all of the petals for this flower. And the poppies take 5 petals per flower, and each sheet will make 1 petal, and you get 12 in a kit. So now I'm just going to position those petals to our stamen and stem. Go ahead and secure that with a little bit of floral tape. I am going to cut this down a little bit because it's a little hard to hold it at this angle for this video, so I'm just going to cut that right off. That'll make it a lot easier to work with for these purposes. Keep it long. If you're doing it in your lap while you're watching TV, which is how I make a lot of my paper flowers, it won't matter. Just for the purposes of this video, I think it's going to be a lot easier to move it around. So now we're just going to overlap them a little bit. See how that looks? Look at it from all sides, kind of decide. And be careful once you start putting on the extra petals, like the additional petals. The first one doesn't really matter where you put it, but depending on the direction that you go with your floral tape, that might nudge it one way or another. So just keep an eye on that. Now we're gonna just keep on adding those petals. I like to open it up a little bit, see how it's going. So nudge it a little bit one way or the other. Because it's a little hard to see when they're all really bunched up what it's going to look like by the time it's all opened up. So it's good to switch back and forth a little bit, see how it looks. How easy is that? They're really pretty, dynamic flower for how easy they are to make. The next step is to go back to that piece that we got the top of the stamen from. And we're going to cut out one of these neck pieces. little scissors for this one because it's kind of some really small work, so it's easier to get in there with a little pair of scissors than my big behemoth pair, which I love. But for teeny tiny detail work like this, I think these work a lot better. And it doesn't have to be perfect. Nothing about these flowers has to be perfect. It's kind of the fun part. Perfect. In theory. So now we are going to roll that up, and that's just going to make it, this is the neck part. It's going to hold all those petals up. If you skip this step, you will have a really beautiful flower that will last a couple of weeks, and then gravity will kind of do its thing and pull. It's going to look wilted. They wilt, even though they're fake, because they need something to fight against gravity, and that's what we're giving them with these neck pieces. So I rolled that into a nice little cone. You can see that right there. I'm going to unroll it. And there's all these little notches that I'm going to put in, and that's going to help it conform to the stem. Because if you don't do that, it'll just tear on its own. And you may not like how it tears. Okay. So that's all ready to go. So we're just going to add that. Actually, I'm going to give it a little, I'm going to fold some of these little tabs down a little bit. It's going to help it. There we go. So now we're going to wrap these around, and it's going to make it a really tight bud shape. So if you want to keep some of those flowers that you're making with your kit really tight like that, I think it's really pretty. Kind of make it organic, make it natural looking, and not all flowers are in perfect bloom all at the same time, you know what I mean? Now we're just going to secure that with a little bit of floral tape. Nice. There we go. So if you do want it to be opened up, all you have to do is open it up after that. And this is going to really help keep those petals from wilting. Awesome. The next step is to make the leaves. So we have our leaf papers right here. The first thing we're going to do is fold it right on the line. Make sure that's a nice crisp, straight line. The crisper and straighter, the better your leaves are going to come out. So we're going to separate them. And then we're just going to cut a little notch right there, right at the bottom of the stem. There we go. Perfect. Now we're going to take some of this floral wire. It's a little bit of a lighter weight than what we use for the actual stems. and we're going to measure it out. You don't want it to go all the way to the end, but you don't want it to go too far into the middle. You want to have enough to work with, so because the more wire you put in, the more you're going to be able to sculpt those leaves afterwards. So right there looks like a good spot. I'm just going to cut that. Set the extra aside. We're going to open up these leaves. Put that right in there. Try to center it as best you can. I'm going to take some glue. I like to use a pH balanced glue. I think that it has like some really nice lay flat properties, so you won't get as much wrinkling as you might with like a less expensive brand of glue. I think glue lasts a really long time, so why not splurge on the expensive ones, right? So we're going to hold that wire right in place. We're going to go right over the top, just like that. You want it to be thin. A thin layer of glue is important. If you use too much, it can actually affect the color of the pigment, and it'll be kind of wrinkly. So then we're going to gently hold this up and start folding it over right where the first fold that we did a few minutes ago. If you want to hold it up to the light, you can kind of see the other side and scooch it over a little bit if you have to. And then you want to let that dry for like 1 or 2 hours. Like seriously, it will mess up your scissors and it will not look right unless you let it dry. I know it's hard, but you know, you have to. So, to spare you the agony of watching me cut all of those out, because they are very intricate, and like I said before, they don't have to be cut out perfectly. Use these lines as like a general guide, but for our purposes, and we are also going to cut out some stem paper. Like I mentioned earlier in the video, I use white floral tape because I cover the stems in paper. I'm just going to cut out a couple of sorry about that. I'm just going to cut out a couple of pieces of stem paper. And big surprise here, you don't have to cut it out perfectly. Just make sure that you don't have any white remaining. And try not to make them too thin, because then they'll be more apt to rip when you're wrapping your stem in them. There's definitely some wiggle room. There we go. So, first thing we're going to do is fold this in half. You can leave it open if you want to. It's totally up to you. Play around with it. Have fun. And the stem paper goes kind of down pretty well on this one, but I'm just going to wrap it in some floral tape and actually cover the whole thing. Oops, it ripped a little. Awesome. And with this, all you really have to do to wrap the paper, wrap a stem in some paper, is this floral tape, even though it's got like literally almost no stick. The paper that I use for the stem paper really sticks to it super well. So all you have to do is press down. Look at that. It's totally stuck on there. And then just kind of wrap it. So I want that first leaf to be a little bit, I think right there is a good place for that first leaf to be. So that's where I'm going to put it. I'm going to angle it out a little bit. Awesome. You can sculpt that any way you want. Give it a nice organic feel. Have it be a little bit fantasy. Whatever you want. That looks nice. Now, go down a little bit more and do one more. Oops. If you have anything like that, I'll show you how to fix it at the end, which we're almost to. I think this one's a nice one for me to be the next one. So I'm going to fold it a little bit. Cover it. Bend it out and put it right there. We're going to secure that to the stem with a little bit more floral tape. And go ahead and sculpt that however you want. We're just going to finish it up, go all the way to the end with it. But, you know, I cut this one down, so you could use all of these in a single stem, or you can use just a few of them and make stems that are just leaves for your floral arrangements. And there we go. As a final step, to make sure that it's going to stay, because it looks really nice right now, but as you go and bend it and sculpt it a little bit more, it will start to not flake off, just kind of not stay perfect. So the best way to keep it staying perfect is to just cover the stem with a little bit of glue. Just a thin layer. Now it's really important after you finish covering it in glue to let it, like, don't touch it, for real, don't touch it for like an hour, because this is going to make the paper that we put on there kind of like wet and soggy. So until it's completely dry, or at least mostly dry, it will just come off with a light touching of it. And then there's a little spot right there. So I'm just going to take a piece of this little paper and put it right on there. That's totally covered. And that is it. Thank you for joining me. I hope you really enjoy making your paper flowers. And yeah, you can order more, or this flower or any kind of flower, at foldedpetal.etsy.com. And you can also check out foldedpetal.com for detail photos, some, you know, process photos, everything that you'd want right over there. So thank you for joining me. Have a great day.